Hey, what is up, guys? Tyler here with YkrRTaz. Today, I want to talk about something that we've actually covered in the past, but it has made a little comeback and is being featured on various news sites, and it's been brought back into the spotlight. And if you haven't seen it, it is a very anomalous and very mysterious case, as it pertains to ancient structures that have been found on Earth, as well as on other planets in our solar system, matching structures that would indicate that our planet is not the only one that's had civilizations on them. So the topic in question is of what is known as Japan's Kofun-era tombs. And you're seeing an image of that here. So let's go to Google Earth, and we'll go ahead and zoom down to one of the few remaining of these tombs. So let's go ahead and zoom in here. And so here we are. Now, for those of you who didn't see our first video on this, I know there's a ton of new subscribers. Since we originally posted, we were one of the first people to break this story back in 2014 regarding this tomb. And it's such an anomalous and bizarre case in ufology. I definitely thought it pertinent to create this video and update all of you who are new to this research and to the channel. So, what you're seeing here is a tomb constructed from the Kofun era in Japan, and what these were these massive tombs that were created and constructed out of heavy stones. Now, these huge mounds have been found scattered across the earth and are known by many different names: burial mounds, barrows, and they all consist of this sort of raised up shape here. And as you're seeing it, an exclamation point may come to mind. And now, this particular tomb here is specific to that of Japan due to its keyhole shape, which dates back to ancient Japan between the 3rd and 7th century, otherwise known as the Kofun period, which lasted for a few hundred years to about 538 AD. So we have this very unique sort of keyhole exclamation point style tomb here. It's very different and very unique. However, not as unique as we had originally thought, as it turns out, because we have found an identical tomb-shaped structure on the planet Mars. And so we will go ahead and show you that here. Now, I will put the coordinates to both of these down in the video description, so you can visit them using the Google Earth software. So, here's Mars on Google Earth. We're zooming in here, and lo and behold, we have another extremely unique exclamation point keyhole-shaped mound that looks incredibly similar to what we have here in Japan. Now, take a look at this, and look at this side-by-side comparison here. And there's a few very interesting things about this mound that we found on Mars. First of all, it's a massive structure, and it appears in a very isolated, flat, empty plain. There's nothing else around it. The sides of the structure have straight edges that run down to a large circular dot formation at its base, just like the one we have here in Japan. Now, NASA has said in the past that these straight edges may be the result of fractures or a hill that was lifted up, and its current shape was the result of a surrounding terrain having been eroded down over billions of years. But interestingly enough, despite this extensive erosion over billions of years, we still have a formation that exhibits a remarkable symmetry. And NASA has had to admit that yes, these similarities do exist, and they're more than just similarities. I mean, it's damn near identical. And really, what are the chances of having such an identical object that is such a dead ringer for the tomb that we have here from ancient Japan? Honestly, look at the edges, look at these straight lines on this thing here on Mars. Compare it to the one in Japan, and ask yourself if you're really willing to buy into NASA's version that this is simply natural, or that maybe, just maybe, what we have here is evidence of a link between our two planets. Remember, we talked a lot about how Mars was like Earth once upon a time. And there have been theories that there was a worldwide disaster, a cataclysm, a war on planet Mars, and that a lot of its inhabitants made their way to another planet and settled on what we now know as Earth. And these aren't the only structures that we found on Mars that are very similar to those we have on our own planet. We have found monoliths sticking up out of the surface, casting long shadows. We've found the famous face on Mars in the Cydonia region. And just across from the face, we have a set of pyramids that look very similar to the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. And you're seeing the images here from Mars showing the face as well as the pyramids, obviously eroded over millions of years, but nonetheless, they're still clearly visible. Here are some more images of pyramids found on the Martian surface in various NASA photographs. Take a look at this here, where we have an obvious four-sided pyramid towering over the Martian surface. Here's another image showing yet again more pyramids strewn across the surface. You might imagine that this is what the pyramids look like before all of this erosion, back when Mars was likely populated. And this here may have been what these pyramids look like. And we've been finding these strange sets of three pyramids all over the world. And there seems to be a connection with these three pyramids that we found in Mexico, Egypt, Mars, and specifically how they all link up to the Orion's Belt constellation. Now, if you don't know, Orion's Belt are the three stars in a line that you can look up and usually see in the night sky, one of the most recognizable constellations. And there has been a lot of research done, and we'll do a future video about this because it's very, very interesting, about the connection with the Orion constellation and how we're finding these pyramids that are perfectly aligned and identically match up when you place them over an image of Orion's Belt. As a matter of fact, I will put a link down in the video description that talks more about this in depth, about the Orion constellation, so be sure to check that out after you watch this video. But there's a lot of history with this constellation, with many mythologies, including that of the Egyptian mythologies, who believe that gods descended from the belt of Orion. And many have also said that visitations have happened in the past, with visitors coming specifically from a planet somewhere in the Orion Belt constellation. So definitely read up on that after you check this video out. But back to these Mars findings. We're seeing them everywhere. We've not only found pyramids on Mars, but we've also found them on the moon. Here you're seeing one of the most famous moon photographs of one of these giant pyramids. And this comes from an Apollo 17 frame that was supposedly washed out. And so when you look up this frame, you get this sort of washed out image where there's nothing there. And it's always been looked at as just a blank frame. However, when we enhance the image, we find out that there is a lot of detail left in this photograph. And this is what we find, which is this massive pyramid in the distance on the lunar surface. And you will find various enhanced versions of this online, some of which show more detail than others, some of which show a large rectangular tower-like object or building standing next to the pyramid. But again, we have found these pyramids there. Here is another very famous image from the moon. This image was leaked some years back. We don't know where it came from or how it got there. However, it has been looked over by various researchers, and it is allegedly a real photograph that wasn't supposed to get out. And ever since it did, there has been a long-running disinformation campaign against it in order to make it look like a hoax and to divert attention away from it. So, I mean, these structures are everywhere. We'll go back to this image here. In my opinion, these structures are identical. The only difference being is the Mars structure has not had the upkeep that the Japanese tomb has, and so it's much more eroded. Look at both of them and honestly ask yourself whether it truly is a coincidence or if there's something more to this. So let me know what you guys think. Now, while we're on the subject of structures on Mars and the moon, we have some new photographs from the moon landings showing some more of these anomalous structures captured above the moon's surface. Now, I'm going to show you two images here that were taken during the Apollo 8 mission. where they were flying around the moon, and these images are sequential. So first we're showing you this frame, and then the next one was taken just a few frames later, and you can see the movement of the moon as they are orbiting it. And so in this first image, we have this shot of the lunar surface. They're high above it, and in the distance, we see what looks like a white object. So let's go ahead and zoom in. And when we do, we see this strange, anomalous structure hovering above the moon's surface. It almost looks like a snake or possibly a formation of 4 separate orb-like objects. And we also see a smaller object that's down much closer to the moon's surface hovering above it, back there in the distance. So let's go ahead and zoom in even further. Here's the objects in question. You're seeing it here. Just this very strange object above the moon. One of probably nearly 1,000 that we've seen in the various footage and imagery from all of the various Apollo missions. But this is not the only thing that we found in this particular frame. We've also found some other objects hovering above the moon, casting shadows down below. So let's go ahead and zoom back out. And if we move over to the right and zoom in, you will notice another one of these white orbs. And I will go ahead and circle it here so you can see what I'm talking about. And you'll notice directly below it is the object's shadow being cast down on the moon. So let's go ahead and zoom in and get a closer look. So here we are zoomed in. We can clearly see that this is an object of some sort casting a shadow down below. Whatever this thing is, it's not one of ours. The object is much too close to the surface to be any of our probes or our reconnaissance orbiters. So whatever this is, it doesn't come from us. So a lot of things happening in this photograph. Now on to the next frame. As they continued their orbit around the moon, you see here a formation of these white orbs that very well may be the same objects that we saw in the first frame that were all connected together, creating that sort of worm or squiggly line. Now it looks like they've dispersed and are in this sort of triangular formation over the moon. Remember, this is just a few frames later. And so let's go ahead and zoom in here. And here we are. We see these 3 objects sitting up at about the same distance to the moon as the first object that we showed you in the previous frame. So could these white objects be the same? Could they have simply been in a tight formation in the first frame, and here we are seeing them disperse about 30 seconds later when this shot was taken? Let me know what you guys think. These are some new findings that have never before been discussed to my knowledge, so definitely want to hear your guys' opinions. Now, on to some other strange sightings. Here we have an image that's been hitting all the online news outlets, taken on September 11th at the 9/11 memorial site, of what is being called a mysterious figure that appeared in this photograph sitting atop the twin lights that are shining up in the sky. Now, I will post the Yahoo News link to this down below in the video description, and this was captured by a man named Rich McCormick, who was snapping pictures of the twin lights at the 9/11 memorial in downtown New York. He said, and I quote, "I didn't realize the image was there until I looked back into the camera and saw a larger piece of white at the top of the lights. And so I enlarged it, and then I saw this figure sitting up at the top." He snapped the photo standing on the waterfront in Hoboken, New Jersey at about 9:30, and he says that the image has not been photoshopped or anything like that. And he says, and I quote, "It looked like an image of an angel, and I feel like it was angels watching over us." Now, obviously, some people have said that this is simply an odd cloud formation. Others have said that this is definitely a figure, an apparition of some kind. And so I'll just leave it at that and let you guys be the judge. All right? So before we end today's video, I'd like to bring up another photograph from the past, from the history books, and show you what is known as the oldest UFO photograph ever taken. So this image here dates back to 1870, and it depicts a cloud formation over the summit of Mount Washington, and this is in the winter of 1870. And lo and behold, we see this large cigar-shaped object hovering over this snow-covered summit with these clouds in the background. And the photograph is actually part of an antique stereo view. The description of the photograph reads, Summit, Mount Washington winter 1870-1871. The famous photograph actually went up for auction on eBay back in March of 2002, where Independent International Pictures Corporation President Samuel M. Sherman announced that his company had won the auction of the oldest known UFO photograph. This after several days of feverish bidding. And so we have this stereo 3D view of the clouds over Mount Washington, which is in New Hampshire. And for being one of the oldest photographs, well, the oldest UFO photograph, it actually has a lot of detail compared to a lot of the footage that we get today. And so it's just one of the most famous photographs. Here's a close-up shot of this cigar, and to this day, nobody knows what it is. But it does give credence to the fact that these sightings have been going on long before any of us were around, long before even our great ancestors were around, and it will continue to go on. So, a wonderful blast from the past, and it's just an amazing image. So, let me know what you guys think about everything we've spoken about today. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe on your way out. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for their continuing support of this channel, and I just want to give a big high five and hello to all of the new subscribers we're getting. About 1,000 new subscribers each day, and it's just really awesome how much this channel has grown. So we're going to keep rocking and rolling, alright? So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all back with much more. Stay safe, guys.